Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living right here in beautiful Fullerton, California. You cannot beat this weather. Really. I mean, seriously. Thank you all for being here in person and also online. My name is Tomoko Rosas, and I'm a practitioner at the center. Please join me in stating our purpose statement. We are a loving spiritual community, empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. So, a few announcements before we get started. It's that time of the year again. We're calling for a slogan for 2024. And you all know what that means. And this year's slogan was, or is, God works through me in 2023. So what rhymes with 24 or 4? We try to rhyme, but sometimes we just don't rhyme at all. And we just choose the ones that we all resonate with. So please submit your suggestions, write it on a piece of paper, and then drop it off in a basket or just give it to me. I think the second week of January we'll pick the winner, and everybody gets to vote. Personal declaration booklet for 2024 and commitment cards are still available. If you like, fill it out, drop it off in the red box, and the details are in the program. Our family candlelight service is this Wednesday coming up, and we'll be serving light dinner at 6:30 p.m. Please be sure to be here because we always have so much food and it's so much fun just to eat together. And then, of course, the service at 7 p.m. This is all practitioner and minister and board participation service, and everybody gets to light their Christ light. So just join us if you can. This is a great way to share your church with your friends and family. Christmas Eve is on Sunday this year. Of course, be sure to join us for our beautiful service. And before you get started on your festivities with your friends and family, you need to get prayed up. So just join us that morning. And I think 3 lucky people will go home with some kind of Christmas gift. We'll see what that is. Our holiday food and toy drive is ongoing, and last Sunday to drop off your donation is next Sunday, the 17th, and that's for in time to deliver before Christmas Day. Thank you all for your donations so far. Calling out for your answered prayer stories, and I'm sure you have many. If you can, please jot it down or let me know and I'll write it down for you so that it could be included into the next newsletter that we mail out. And our Unexpected Income Club is doing great. We're at $18,822, and that is since October 2019, and that is our seed money for our new spiritual home. So join us on that, and remember, all of your donations are tax deductible. And then the last day to donate for 2023 is, of course, the 31st of December. So just a reminder. I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to pass it on to Tommy.
To be still, that God loved me. You need to be still, that God loved me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, need to be still, and that God loved me.
Please join me in prayer. There is one divine and perfect presence in the universe and everywhere. The Spirit of truth is everywhere. God is where I am. I know this presence is right here, right now. I let the spirit of love and peace permeate each one of us, desiring only that which is good, seeing only that which is good. I know that this service is already good and very good, and I give thanks and blessings to all the volunteers and the loving hearts that make this service possible. And now let us open our hearts and mind to receive today's message given by our own Reverend Dr. Bill Salisbury. And so it is. My name is Eva Castelo, and the theme for today says how to spot a Grinch. Somehow watching the movie of Whoville brought the word unity, and that's what my reading is going to be from 365 Science of Mind on page 351. Unity. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. I and my Father are one. Who hath seen me hath seen the Father. John 10:30. Perhaps the most difficult thing for us to perceive is that there is one life running through everything. One presence manifest in everything, and one person individualized through everyone. The perception of unity sees through all differences to one universal sameness. But unity does not mean uniformity. We do not all have to be alike, think alike, or act alike. But the world is learning that we must all act in unison. The infinite one manifests in infinite variations, each rooted in the one, but each divinely unique in its own right. Good, bad, high, low, across, above, and beneath, all are one to the infinite mind. Today I seek my union with life. Today my imagination reaches back through all differences to the universal sameness. Today I know that I am in God. God is in me. We are one. Today, as never before, I shall seek to sense this divine union of the soul with its source and all people with the infinite. And now please join me in prayer. I proclaim that God is in every human being, that the light and beautiful essence of who we are is shining brightly for ourselves and humanity. Our lives are a beautiful magnet, attracting everything that's in our hearts, manifesting with ease and grace. I know that life is manifesting miracles in every moment, and that we get to experience all the good of God in our lives. I am committed to deepening my understanding and acceptance of myself and others. I choose to know the highest good for myself and others. I know that as I bless my family, my friends, and my community, this blessing inevitably leads to more good in any life. I know that I am part of a greater picture. It is all the parts together that make the divine whole. I choose to see the greater good in all the parts and in all the pieces. I trust my greatest good is showing up in my life in ways I can see and touch. I know the good I sent forth has already returned to me. I release my word into the action of the Lord, knowing it is already so, and so it is.
My soul sings out to you, oh Lord. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh Lord. My soul sings out to you. Oh God, you're my strength. Carry me on wings. You and me, you know my heart. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh God. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh Lord. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you.
Thank you so much. I think his soul sings out to us too. So here we are, stuck in the middle of December, discovering our divinity. If you look at your program, you'll see that must be so because it's written there. And today, Thursday was the beginning of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah. It's going to go until next Friday. There you go. Now let's talk about, I want to talk about something different. Because we are getting close to Christmas. We're almost in that season, And we all know what goes on at Christmas. We all spend more money than we should on things that, everybody we know is going to say thank you for and maybe aren't as eager to get them as we are to give them. And we're going to be at the mall on the day before. But the fact is, that's not Christmas at all, is it? I mean, that's part of it. It's part of the ritual we go through. But the fact is that Christmas is a spirit. It's a feeling. If we never had all the accoutrements, we would still have Christmas. because we would all get that feeling in our hearts and our souls would sing with all the love and the joy and the light and the brightness and all these things that come to us at Christmas time. And you know, we talk every year about, you know, was Christmas really the day? I don't know. Probably not. What difference does it make? The idea is that that feeling of oneness, closeness, togetherness, of brotherly love, of sharing that with everybody is what's important. So who doesn't share that? Well, I happen to have it on good authority. I took the liberty of selecting a few lines from the Grinch. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. Well, doesn't that sound like something you'd say in the 60s, right? How's your head? Got your head on right? Ah! It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. We don't need a reason. Why is the Grinch the Grinch? For a gazillion different reasons. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. And of course, it's easy to spot the real Grinch. That big, ugly, green, hairy monster that comes down the chimney and steals all the presents and the tree and everything and back up the chimney, and then has the audacity to lie to the little girl who catches him. But that's what Grinches do. And we have Grinches affecting us, not just at Christmas, but all the time. And we just, sometimes, I mean, I think it helps if we know how to spot them. Because if we don't, we may kind of suffer a little bit personally for that. You know, Eva talking in her reading and affirmative prayer about seeking our highest and best good, and we do. We always want to live in that space, right? We want to live at the pinnacle of what's available to us, and of course the pinnacle of what's available to us is the entirety of that power and presence that is God. Because that's what we're made from. That's what we're driven by. That's what powers us. Energizer Bunny's got nothing on us, right? We've got the real power source going for us. But we don't always live at that pinnacle. We don't always live on the peak. Right? Remember, last century, Abraham Maslow, the famed psychologist, and his hierarchy of needs, and he called these experiences when we do reach that pinnacle, when we do reach the height of who we can in our humanness recognize as being the highest and best good for us. He called those peak experiences. Because we don't live there. Sometimes we're somewhere in between there. You know, we're not at the peak. We're not necessarily down in the valley, but we're not at the peak. So he calls them peak experiences. And after having several art classes with our very own artist, Karen, I decided that those peak experiences could look more like this. We get to peak at those experiences. Because do we stay in that forever? No. It'd be nice, and that is, of course, the goal. But that's not necessarily to say that we're going to be able to do that. So we have to be careful of letting the Grinch, because remember, the Grinch doesn't look like the Grinch. The Grinch looks like, I don't know, Aunt Harriet, Uncle Bill, the person next door, the butcher, the librarian. You never know. But the Grinch always has the same message, and it's very subtle. They always have something to complain about. Do you know anybody like that? And doesn't it get just a little bit tedious? If we're not on our game, if we're not somewhere near that peak, we might just fall for that. And the next thing you know, we're grousing around too like somebody kicked our dog. Not a good way to be. And these Grinches, they just sneak in there when you're least expecting it. And of course, the Grinch in the Dr. Seuss story, the big thing he was whining about was that they were so happy. They had such a community going. He couldn't stand that. We know anybody about that? Like that? Oh, they're partying, they're having fun, they're making noise, they're enjoying themselves and each other. Nonsense. So, the Grinch is a little bit of a misanthrope, but doesn't wear a sign on his forehead saying, I hate people. But we know people like that too, right? Grousing all the time about everything. But once he steals all those gifts, and he's running back up, not to our peak, back up the mountain, but not to our peak. He's running back up the mountain to take all the stuff up there, and he says to himself, oh, wait till here's the sun coming up, wait till they find out all their presents are gone, their trees are gone. I'll hear some noise, all right. I'll hear all that whining and moaning and complaining. My kind of noise. I get to hear that song. But then he doesn't. He hears them singing. He hears them singing glorious music, glorious songs. And he says, the Who's would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's started singing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas thing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. And of course, spoiler alert, we just fast forward a little bit. He doesn't stop it. In fact, he joins into it. But initially, his problem was that he just didn't appreciate other people. He didn't appreciate the happiness. He didn't appreciate the community and the togetherness and the oneness that was displayed in this family of people. Ernest Holmes, in his little book, Keys to Wisdom, said this, because we know that basically the main problem with the Grinch is the Grinch was just unhappy. Just an unhappy person. And when we have unhappy people in our lives, we know it. And we'll talk about how we deal with that in a second. But Ernest Holmes said, if people were never unhappy, they would never grow old. The Grinch considered himself old, remember? He'd been listening to this nonsense for 53 or 54 years. They would, of course, mature in years, and someday the doctor might say they had died of old age. But this would not have happened. They would have just walked out of their body, out of this life, into another. A person who has enthusiasm for living, who is young mentally, cannot be old. The inner spirit of such a person is never denied. So eventually, the Grinch didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm tired of living like this. I'm going to start loving people and enjoying life and just taking the fruits of the universe that are mine by divine birthright, by the way. I'm just going to start enjoying it. No. He took the example of the very people that he was trying to hurt because he didn't like their happiness and their love and their commitment to one another. He hadn't found a way to express any kind of gratitude, because remember, we can't be happy if we're not grateful. If we don't have something that we recognize as being worth being grateful for, we just can't be happy people. And Grinches, whatever their age, are already old. I've known people who at 20-something were just as old as dirt. Other people who are, well, like, I don't know, approaching 100, who are still so young at heart and so vital and so vivacious that age truly is just a number at that point. But if you're a Grinch, and we know them, you know anybody who's like pretty young, but you would say, well, they have a really old soul. No, they don't have a really old soul. They just have a really weak, undeveloped, or built in the wrong direction soul. We just need an overhaul. We need to get them into the soul shop and do a complete renovation on them. That's all. Another thing that, no, I don't want to do that. Because I want to talk about something else Ernest said. Because one thing we know about Grinches, about the Grinch, is they don't get the real meaning of life. If you get the real meaning of life, you can't possibly be a Grinch. Anything can happen to you, anything. And you just kind of like, what's that saying? Water off a duck's back. You just shake it off. Because when we are steeped in that power, that divine power, that presence that lives within us, that spark of divinity is burning and glowing within us, when we know our place, our position, the strength we have and the power we get to call on to handle those things that come up in our lives, we do understand the real meaning of life. And when we're in that situation, there's nothing we can't overcome. Anyway, in his book, Gateway to Life, Ernest had this to say: seldom indeed do we perceive the real meaning of life. Ooh, that does not obtain here, does it? No. Daily, we perceive the real meaning of life. But he goes on, we seem always to be looking for something we believe is hard to find. Might be a little ring of something familiar back there. If our concept of life is little, mean, and fearful, that's all that can come to us. When we perceive good, we will receive good, and that which we receive, we can have. When we perceive it, we will receive it. Ooh, we get Tommy to put some music to that. And we'll be off and running. The Grinch really lives a mean, spirited, little tiny life. And come on, let's be honest, every once in a while, in the course of a whole lifetime, every once in a while, each of us has probably kind of not moved into the Grinch neighborhood, but maybe moved into the neighborhood next door because something came up that we thought, but oh my God, this is it. I can't do this. I can't handle this. Or sometimes, why is the world out to get me? But it isn't. And we discover that. We find that out because we fall back on our faith. We fall back on our practice of spirituality. That's why we practice. We practice and practice and practice, just like the golfer does, and just like the saxophone player does, just like the doctor does and the airline pilot does. These guys that pull off these miraculous landings in the Hudson River or out in the ocean or wherever, on a freeway, wherever they are, they didn't do that because they'd never practiced for that sort of thing. They were able to pull that off because when they're not flying the plane, they're in the simulator, and they've done this already 100 times, hoping that they never have to do it for real, but knowing that if they do, it's going to be okay. And that's what we know. We know, regardless of what comes to us, regardless of what might happen to us, we're going to be okay. We are going to be okay. That okayness was promised us at the date of our delivery to this address, and before. James Dillett Freeman, the poet laureate of Unity, had this poem. He says, I sat and looked at the mountain, and I laughed. I laughed not because the mountain was there, but because I was there. I laughed to be alive. And what am I alive for, if not to laugh? Then I heard the mountain laughing. I wondered, is this mountain laughing at me or with me? We always wonder then. Suddenly I sensed that the trees were laughing too, and the streams and the grass and the rocks and the earth under my feet. We laughed, they and I, there upon the laughing mountain, rocking through space together, rolling with the laughter of being. Because we're not Grinches. We roll with the laughter of being because happiness and joy is our divine birthright. That's what we're here for. And when something comes along that looks like it's going to nudge us off that flow of laughter and enjoyment and peace and love and community, all we have to do is realize that somewhere, somehow, I might even not even know it right away and I'd be able to recognize it, but some way there's a Grinch at work in my life. All I have to do is sort out who it is, what it is, because it doesn't have to be a person, right? Sort out what this Grinchiness is, get it straight in my mind so that I can take that into my practice, which is my prayer, which is my communication with that consciousness that grounds all being, that divine consciousness, and knowing that when I tell my story to my spirit, that it gets put into that law that only knows to say yes. So if I'm putting in there the wrong material, if I'm saying to the universe, I'm a victim, or I'm unhappy about this, that, or the other thing, the universe says back to me, by God, Bill, you're right. You are. What a miserable mess you are. And because you like that so much, I'm going to give you more. And more and more and more. But when I come to my senses and I say, out, Grinch, be gone, because I am steeped in affirmative prayer. I know my place in this cosmos, and I know that all the power and all the presence of that almighty spirit, that life principle that put me here, is with me to keep me here and to keep me safe and to keep me happy and joyful. Because that's why I'm here. And the universe says, guess what? Well, Bill, you've come to your senses. And right you are. You like joy? Here's a boatload of it. You like happiness? You like peace and light and love and community? Get out of the driveway. We're dropping it all right here, right now. And it's going to give me everything I'm looking for. The other thing from Keys to Wisdom that Ernest Holmes had to say was this. And this, I selected because this is Ernest talking about the facade of the Grinch. Because we know, and this is hard to take, okay? This is hard to take because there are people in this world who we are so at odds with and so disagree with, and know absolutely certainly that this world will be a way better place without them, that it's difficult for us to realize that it's a mask. These people that are so wrong about everything, that's a mask. They have a mask on just like we have a mask on. And if we get out from behind that mask and we see inside ourselves, we look within to see what our true identity is, we address the world that way. But if somebody's wearing that mask of defense that's been built up by the race consciousness and the conditioning of everything that's come before us on this planet, it's difficult for them to get out from under that. Anyway, he says, we are hiding our divinity behind a mask, but back of the mask is a unique individualization of God. If we can unmask the mind, we shall reveal the real person. The Grinch is a real person. Just hiding behind being contrary, hiding behind meanness and littleness, hiding behind prejudice and bigotry, hiding behind not enoughness, hiding behind inadequacy. There's a real person back there. That real person that's hiding behind all of that we don't like, that real person used to be a little boy or a little girl, hopping and jumping up and down the sidewalk and in and out of the house and bounding upstairs, loving life and loving the world. Until gradually that just got taken away, one way or another. And the fact that it's taken away does not mean that this person is not still an individualized expression of God, is not an instantiation of that divine presence that has created all and sustains all, is not a copy of that life principle in action, expressing, seeing the world through our eyes, through this Grinch's eyes. And yeah, sometimes the Grinch needs a little bit of help. But we don't help people by shooting them, locking them up, outcasting them. We help people by taking them into that community, just like Whoville took the Grinch in, realizing that there was nothing to this monster except that scared little child that they had to coax back into the loving embrace of a community that cared for one another. That's this world. That's what we have. That's what we have to offer. That's all we have to offer, and that's enough to offer to make everything right. Should we just put our minds to it? I want to end with something from Raymond Charles Barker, The Science of Successful Living. Raymond Charles Barker, one of our early Science of Mind ministers, one who worked directly hand in hand and side by side with Ernest Holmes. He said thus: the natural and normal state of your emotions is one of order, peace, and givingness or love. God equipped you to feel the greatness of life and to impart your feelings to others. Your emotions are divine gifts that should always be used rightly. Unfortunately, many people have learned how to use those emotions not rightly, and sometimes just in plain the wrong way. Okay? The reason we do our spiritual practices is so that we can recognize that our emotions when connected to that divine inner spark that is who we are, connected to our real identification, not this identification with who I am, where I work, how much money I have, what I drive, where I live, that the real connection to who I am, I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm your aunt, your uncle, I'm your best friend, I'm back to back and shoulder to shoulder with you through everything, and God has our backs. When we get to that, we're using our emotions to further the benefit of everybody, not to be Grinch-like and to take from others what is not ours and what we don't need, because taking is not how we improve. Receiving is, and giving and receiving, as we know, are the same thing. But we don't ever have to take. All we have to do is receive the outpouring of love that people naturally, instinctively have. And stop putting those barriers up. Just lower those barriers and let that love in. And let that change our lives. And consequently change our world. So let's just know this together. Let's just know that there is no Grinchiness that can break through the surrounding atmosphere of love and community and expectation of divine goodness that we can as easily encircle ourselves with as with defenses that inevitably break down and don't work anyway. So knowing that as we accept everybody and we welcome them into that one community, that spiritual community, that global community, that includes all living things, and all things are living in one fashion or another. When we understand that, when we accept that, and when we receive the goodness of that teaching, and then expand it outward from within our own hearts and our own souls, we do indeed have an opportunity to have that world that works for everyone. And it's just with grateful heart that I know this is so. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my divinity. And I just say, thank you, God, for this. And I just release this word into that divine law, that law that knows only to say yes to me, that knows only to fulfill my every desire, to place my every demand in the express lane, and bring to me the best that life has to offer. I just let this word go and I say, thank you, God. And so it is. This is our time to shine our light, to share our abundance. We know that all of our good comes from that one source, God, and for this we are grateful. Thank you for your continued financial support as well as emotional and loving, heartfelt support, because it's that financial support that keeps us going. And for those who are not in attendance but watch this on video and continue to hit that donate button on the website and send in their tithes, thank you. So let's just know that we bless these gifts, these tithes, these offerings, knowing they are given from the central core of who we are, which is God made manifest on this plane. We send them forth to do their good work in this community and in the world at large, with no strings and no conditions, and so it is.
When I was a boy each week, Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest. We would read a holy word, consecrate the holy bread. Everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is that everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the everything is holy now. Read the questioning child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. Not a sacrament, I'll tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. Made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. 'Cause everything is holy now. Used to be a world half there, heaven second rate, hand me down. But I walk it with the river there, 'cause everything's holy now.
Cosentino reminding us that everything is holy now. Everything has always been holy. Just every once in a while we've let a little Grinchiness sneak in and block our view of that. Let's just know together something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called community.
It's this thing called community.
Even the Grinch is let in here.
Even the Grinch is let in here.
We just don't pay any attention to it. Thank you, God, in me.
Thank you, God, in me.
Amen.